We all good? Nearing the finish line. So I think we probably left the most important thing till last, ironically. At least someone had the balls to bring it up when I asked you what you wanted to talk about, which is good. So usually when I'm talking about mindset, I have a specific direction I want to go in, but this time I kind of don't. So I'm going to ask you guys what you want to talk about relevant to this. It can be anything productivity related. Before we get into that, I kind of lied. I do have a slight direction here. If we actually define what this thing is at first principle, really, we have two words in this sort of amalgamation here, mind and set. Okay? Now obviously, set we're referring to as lock. So if you think about mind, it's really just a collection of belief systems, and like your paradigm and the way you see the world. And set, in order for you to be sane and to be able to operate in the world, you kind of need to be locked in on specific things. And the thing is, I can tell you for pretty much, I was going to say for free, but you're all paid to be here. I can tell you for a mastermind fee, I can tell you that the biggest jumps that Bo and I have ever had have come from unlocking a specific belief system. It's never been about the funnel we've used or the ad copy or the product or anything. It's been about breaking a specific belief system. And like, for example, like less is more. That's one thing that we had to sort of break out of you guys. So what I want you all to know right now is if you have where you are now and you have where you want to be, and there's a gap between these two things, like, yes, there's things you can do to bridge this gap, like marketing or product or whatever, but usually, like, it's just about switching a belief system. So usually you're just one belief system switch away from your goal. Now, the belief system is the thing that is the catalyst for the action that you're going to take. Okay? So, for example, one belief system people have is, I can just make a half-assed product and be successful. It's like, no, but in order for you to build a product that's going to make you successful, you have to believe it's worthwhile doing. So we can talk a lot about beliefs and how these things work and everything. But if we're asking ourselves what actually is mindset, it's just the way your mind is set. Okay? And you're set on these belief systems. And you will defend these with your life no matter how wrong you are. I said this to Bo last night. I was talking to him about like different belief systems and stuff. And I said to him, it's funny how often I've been so wrong about something, but I will defend that point to the ends of the earth, or like my life depends on it, and that's not a good thing to do. So I kind of wanted to start with a brief definition as to what we're actually talking about here, because mindset is very abstract and it could all woo-wah and shit like that. But all of you have belief systems, and all of you believe certain things to be true that aren't true. Me, Bo, Brunker, Nor, maybe not Nor, I don't know, he's pretty perfect. But all of you guys have shit in your brain that is not true. And if that wasn't the case, then you'd all be where you wanted to be.
How do you navigate being aware of the things that you obviously...
So any problem you have, you can pretty much boil down to a belief system you have about it.
Reverse engineer the problem.
Yeah, so if you've got, like, let me think of an example. Okay, so, yeah, let's take it in this direction. So let's give you the story. So when we were starting Northflow, this was fucking 7 years ago, I believed that people would not respond to cold emails. I believed that people wouldn't trust me. I believed that, like, the thing that you said about, like, you know, I need to nurture them and stuff like that, I believed it to be true. And therefore, for me, it was. But typically, the only thing that's going to be true is what you believe to be true. Once you change a belief and you unlock it, it's an elapsement of time before you actually recognize it is true. So any financial or scientific revolution throughout the history of humankind has come from someone changing a belief system. So for example, Dr. Berry in the 2008 financial crisis predicted the collapse of the market. And everybody believed housing was safe, okay? Everyone just thought it was. He looked and he changed his mind, and it took the market 5 years for his belief to actually come to fruition. And so the better you can get at this, the further forward you're gonna get. So I did this with outreach where, like, I believed that no one would reply, and there's something called praxis, which basically denotes that you give assent to belief through action. And so if you believe something is a certain way, you will behave as if it is true, because how could you possibly behave any other way? Okay? We act out what we believe. So if you want to know what someone truly thinks or believes, don't look at what they say, look at how they act, because that's how beliefs manifest. And the real danger of this is if your belief is out of alignment with what you want to achieve, then you're never going to act on it. The action is the thing that matters. The belief doesn't really matter. The action matters. But to take the action, you have to have the belief unlocked. So remember, your mind is set in a certain way, and everything you want and more is just behind you telling yourself you're wrong about something specific.
And where was the breakthrough with the realization of the email, for example?
So I couldn't get it to work for ages. I just couldn't get it to work. And then what I did is I didn't audit all my belief systems. I asked myself, I said, what is everything I believe to be true about outreach? And I listed them all down, and I made like a big old document. And then I thought, well, of course I'm not achieving success because I believe it's not even fucking possible. So then what I did is I looked at all those belief systems. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. A belief is unconscious typically. So you make it conscious, you state the truth, and it's hard to do because this is already what you believe.
Yeah.
Right? So you look at it and then you invert it and you ask yourself what the complete opposite of that thing would be, and then you try to engineer that into your life. People believe scale is hard. It's not. But it's only hard if you believe it's hard. You act out what you believe. So what do you guys want to talk about?
Trauma.
Trauma? Oh, for fuck's sake.
The shadow.
Oh, God.
I can hammer you here all day.
You good, man?
Okay, yeah.
No, this is where the leverage is, man, I'm telling you.
Like stress and stuff, like balancing life. 16-hour focus days.
Well, that's you just do it. Do you believe you can?
Yeah.
Then just do it. It's not something you strategize or talk about. You just walk to your desk, you sit down, and you work. See what I mean? It's the way your mind is set. You think, you believe there's some crazy thing you have to know to achieve that. There's not. As is the case with nearly everything you guys want to do. I want to scale my ads. How? Just fucking do it. But surely there's some crazy strategy. Nope, just spend more. And then watch it like a hawk. Everything's very simple. All you have to do is get out of your own way. That's all growth is just getting out of your own way.
How to change a belief until you have evidence of it the truth? Self-sabotage.
Do you know self-sabotage doesn't exist? Do you mean? I'll explain this. So Jung was a psychologist. He was an unconscious. He studied the unconscious, and he believed that you as a human are basically a fragment of individual selves. Okay. Think of it like this. Here we have a table, for all intents and purposes. This is a table, right? Let's just pretend that's a table. And I want you to imagine that this is a company. Around this table, we have the board. Okay? People who sit at the board to make decisions about how the company should be run. Okay? Now, the company is going to have a goal. In case you guys can't tell by now, the company represents your goal and you. Okay? And the reason self-sabotage doesn't exist is because inside of you, you're infinitely complex. Okay? Not just you, all of you. No, I'm not targeting you on that. And inside of you, you have fragments of yourself. And they all want different things, but they all have the same goal. So you have your goal right now, which, like, this is the company's goal, which is to make as much money as possible. But all of these directors inside of the company want to do it in a different way, or they have different ideas as to how it should be done. And so what you need to learn to do is sit here on the chair. So every company has a chairman of the board. This is your identity, this is your conscious mind. And what the chair of the board will do is mediate the discussions between all these people to figure out how they can achieve their goal whilst making everybody individually happy. So the reason self-sabotage doesn't exist is because part of you, like this part, let's say this part of you wants to party. Now, this part will actively sabotage your work part in order to, fulfill its needs and stuff like that. And if you're wondering why parts of us do things, it's unmet needs, it's pain, and it's trauma. Now that's a whole thing. But the point I'm making here is like, you need to figure out how to achieve this whilst appeasing every single part of you. Because if you try and polarize yourself just for one part of you, all of the other ones are going to fight it. And so, as if you're running a company as the chair of the board, your job is to make sure everyone's happy. They all want the same thing, otherwise your goal couldn't possibly exist. You have your goal, but they all want to do it and make sure their own needs are met along the way. So, you know, for example, let's say there's part of you that's introverted. And let's say this is introverted Charlie. Okay, like that's a fragment of my personality or my shadow, in essence. If I want to achieve my goal, I can't be introverted all the time. But if I know that part of me wants this deeply, then I need to learn to perform something called integration. And integration exists when I still allow this thing to manifest what it wants in its own way. Not in its own way, but in the way that the chair of the board will dictate. So if I know that this thing is going to kick and scream when I try and start a personal brand, what I might do every month is just spend a weekend in the forest by myself to appease it. And I can still work in the forest and stuff like that, but you need to understand what these things want and then orchestrate them so they can still get what they want whilst you're moving towards your goal. Otherwise, what will happen is one of them will become so angry and so upset that it will crash the whole thing down. All of these things have to get what they want. If they don't, then they're going to just sabotage you. So you might think, I don't want to start a personal brand. Oh, that's self-sabotage. It's not. How could this thing be sabotaging itself? It's benevolent. It wants the best thing for you because it's part of you. So what you guys have to understand is that you are a composition of lots of different things that all want different things. Therefore, you need to figure out how to give them what they want. Now, the thing you start with this place is awareness of them. So you do things, and we all do things, we all do shit. It happens for a reason. You guys are all here for a reason. You all want to achieve your goal. You want to manifest your conscientious energy along a trajectory towards something meaningful. And so you're all here because of that. There's another thing that, like, maybe some of you have bad habits that you don't like. You do them for a reason. And when you take an action, all of your physical manifestations of action or cause are these things trying to appease themselves. That's all your life is. You are kind of like a puppet to these things. So what you have to learn to do is become conscious of them and start labeling them. So, for example, if I know that every time I go to a social engagement, or if I get too much, if I socialize too heavily, I start to feel anxious and panicked, I say, oh, there's introverted Charlie coming up. And so every time you feel an emotion, it's one of these parts trying to talk to you. These things, they don't have mouths. They can't like communicate verbally. So they use emotions. So anytime you guys have an emotion come up out of nowhere, it's one of these things trying to tell you something, that it needs something. And you can't kick it away or get rid of it. So the only way that I figured out how to stop self-sabotaging was to essentially figure out how to appease these things. So for example, you know, I've got in my mind gaming Charlie, okay? And he exists. And the only way I could you can't get rid of it. The only way I could appease him was to turn the game into the business, right? So what I started to do was gamifying business. I got an aura ring to like gamify my stats, and then I started you start doing it like that. And so this is the process called integration, and you have to do it. And if you have these emotions and you don't listen to them, you can get away with that for like a month, but then it all blows up. And then you find yourself like in a massive rut for like 7 days. And the longer you wait to fulfill one of these needs, the longer the rut. Who's had this before where, you know, you try and do this discipline thing when you just push it down, push it down, push it down, and then everything breaks apart? Yeah. Well, this is your consciousness. This is what we're using right now to discuss. This is the light that shines on the unconscious. This is the unconscious. Your goal, like why do you have your goal? Where does that thing come from? But that's a weird thing to think about. Like, why do you want what you want? It's not like you just wake up. Well, yeah, it's trauma usually. Usually the adult is developed to protect the child in that regard. But that's how it works. That's why you sabotage yourself. It's because you're waiting too long to fulfill a specific need. Now, there are behaviors that there might be, maybe you have like alcoholic Charlie, and it's really bad. Well, it's not really alcoholic Charlie, but what that is you're trying to ignore something, or you're trying to numb something. and you have to get to the bottom of figuring out why you want to numb it, and that's when you perform shadow work to, combat that negative behavior and turn it into the work. So I had this where I was like bullied for a long time in school, and that manifested by me like self-sabotaging, or part of me trying to sabotage because it believed I wasn't worthy of power. Because there's basically somewhere where I believe I'm powerless. Because when you have trauma, what happens is you repress it, you push it down, and that part of you always exists until you integrate it. So this is why these people, these things, they come from unmet needs, like, oh, part of me is introverted, but I'm not getting that, or it comes from trauma. If you process the trauma and resolve it, it goes away. So if anyone in here has got a terrible addiction or habit, that's probably coming out of some trauma. So if you can clear this thing out, then it's one less person to have to contend with and deal with. Yes?
But what about a core desire that is pre-installed and not really based on traumas only, such as status? I feel it's like, for me, status is so difficult to overcome. And as much as I read into psychology, at every single corner I read that status is one of the 4 main desires, and it's not like you can just deactivate it because it's so...
No, you have to integrate it. So you have to channel it. It's just, energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be transferred. That's true in physics, it's true in psychology. So trauma, status, freedom, these are all pockets of energy that you can use, right? And so this is what I did. I still want status, but I now get it from standing up here, right? Instead of having to like prove myself through a car or a watch, I get it from people watching my YouTube videos. I still want it. There's still part of me that's insecure that needs it. Every man needs it, right? But you basically, if you refuse to give it what it like, okay, so look at it like this. With something like status, it can manifest in what we could call a shallow way or easy way. And this is basically like a car or a watch or any indication of like status, right? Or it can manifest in a deep way, which is hard. And anything related to this is going to exist from your work. So all you have to do is resist this for long enough for that part of you to realize that the only way it's going to get what it wants is if you work. And this is how you unlock a fucking insane work ethic. This is how you get those ridiculous hours and how you just never want to stop working. If parts of you understand the only way they're going to get what they want is through your business, now, like, I mean, if you can get all of these guys on the same page to march to the same beat, you're on. For example, if introverted Charlie knows that if he works really hard, he can afford to just block everyone out for 2 days, he's going to want to work really hard for that. And the only way you do that is by resisting the shallow urges to, like me with the Instagram thing, for example. Like, oh, I really want to post on my personal Instagram to show everyone who I used to know how well I'm doing. It's like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. I really want to make a YouTube video. That's how it goes. The energy has to go somewhere, and if you give it no choice, it will have to go into the work. That's how you unlock an insane work ethic. You don't.
All the mini Charlies?
Huh?
When you build like a list with all the mini Charlies?
Yeah. So I've got like I'm not going to show you because it's very personal, but every time I acknowledge just something weird, like some sort of behavior that just, like for example,
Is that like a need? Is that like a need or an urge? Or
no, like if there's like something coming up, like let's think of an example. I'll try and think of one that happened recently.
The routed twat. The routed twat.
Yeah, prime example, status Charlie. I out of nowhere comes this ridiculous impulse to buy a Rolex. Why is that there? You don't just come out of nowhere. You're a puppet to your unconscious. And then as soon as you have an impulse or an emotion for something, you note it down, you become cognizant of it and aware of it, you make the unconscious conscious, and then you label it. Oh, there's status Charlie again. And over time it will keep kicking up, and then
how did it transition?
you kind of just tell it. Like every time that would come up, like the Rolex thing or the car thing, like I sold the car, for example, but every time it would come up, I'd just be like, I'd notice the impulse and just not act on it, knowing full well that after a while that thing will learn that it's not going to get what it wants through that, so it has to go to somewhere else. The danger is if it goes somewhere even worse. But I've never had that before.
So Charlie, like verbalizing your identity.
Yes. All you are is a fragment of personalities.
Rising is where you let the baby cry.
What do you think about like sexual energy? Because there is a lot of psychology. There is a lot of psychology that say like that the most personal owners usually are the most sexual personal owners because like they manage to take their sexual energy and like that amount of energy into work or like goal.
I never really thought about that before, so I'm not sure.
What about like wanting to always like learn from others, but in that also you're kind of sabotaging yourself in the sense that
Learning is self-sabotage.
Was that?
Learning is like sabotage because like once you know what to do, you don't need to learn anything else until you do that, and then you need to learn something
So
else.
let's say you're doing at the same time as well.
Yeah.
But like let's say like let's take your example with sound. Like when were you at a point like I am like good enough in the sense like I know stuff and I don't need to look further, even though you're taking action, but you're like, was there a point like in that sense? Like for
No,
you?
well, you should never feel like you know enough or you're good enough. But it comes back to that vision and the goal thing. I know what I want, I know what I have to do to achieve it, I know what I have to learn to do those things, and that's all I'm focused on. Once I hit the goal, I'll redo the exercise and think again. Kind of like Charlie Munger, who's Warren Buffett's business partner, used a bit of a crude analogy here. He said that like your goal should be like the sperm and the egg. Where like once one gets in, it just locks off. Nothing else can get in, and that's the only thing that matters. You just, yeah, that's weird. I'm not going to go down there.
What stops becoming so? Like, what if your goal is shared, like having a business partner? How do you manage the dynamic of like introverted Charlie now doesn't just impact Charlie, it also might impact Mo? So how does that dynamic work? As in, you guys spend all this time together because you're working together.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff pops up all the time. Is it like when you're on your own all the time, mindset can be very much personal, it's just me. But then the more you're sharing with other people, the more
Yeah, I mean, Bo and I share literally everything. Like a married couple. The only way a partnership works is if you tell each other the complete truth, no matter how painful it is. And because of that, I understand Bo better than he understands himself, and vice versa. And therefore, he knows when I'm doing something stupid, and I know when he's doing something stupid, and we can call each other out accordingly. Yeah.
Do you ever satisfy those shallow urges?
Yeah, of course. I
So you
shouldn't.
still get it.
Yeah, they still get me.
But how do you then detach yourself from that, or make sure it doesn't then?
It's just like a
bigger, like, do you not feel guilty for then gaming?
100%.
Any time you game, you won't allow yourself to like do it without having the guilt.
Well,
attached.
this thing's good now. I don't have the urge to play any video games anymore ever.
But you still do.
Well, I game the business.
Oh,
This
okay.
gets what it wants through work.
Yeah. But I'm like gaming, partying, whatever it is.
Well, like the partying thing, like I'll get fucked up every now and then. Because if I let's say part of me wants to party, right? If I don't do that every now and then if let's say that I push that thing down and I bury its needs and its trauma for 2 years, this is why midlife crises happen, man.
Yeah.
Like this thing becomes so fucking like big, and it's just like a volcano. Like it's like your psychology is kind of like your psychology is like a big volcano like this. Let's just pretend that's a volcano. And you know, obviously in the volcano we have this build of pressure, and it builds and it builds and it builds. And your job as an entrepreneur or as a human in general is every now and then to just come in and release a bit of this pressure through tequila shots or something like that. And if you don't, and you sit on it for too long, then what's going to happen? Too many tequila shots.
But so, because you say the gaming thing you satisfy with the business and you transport that urge into, well, within the partying thing you have still, and you still need to, that kind of valve.
Like I drank with the team the other day.
Yeah.
Still need to work, yeah.
And I'll drink with Bo and we'll just talk about business stuff. Like, you know, it's difficult because it's not binary. Like, if you want to party every weekend and you give into that every weekend, that's not good. There's a line where you still need to try and tame these. As the chair of the board, you still need to be able to sort of keep an eye on these things. But my point,
it's not partying for me. So like playing golf. Like, where's the balance? Like, do I feel guilty for that, or
no,
do
you
I
shouldn't feel guilty. You
have like?
you have a life, man.
Yeah.
Like this whole fucking polarization discipline thing, it does not work. I've tried it for 6 years. Like entrepreneurs, I ran out of paper here. Entrepreneurs are like elastic bands, okay? So imagine this is an elastic band here, okay? And it's obviously stretchy. You can stretch this thing out. Now, at the beginning, we have some slack. Oh, it's fine. But the longer that you put off these things and the less, like, the more you work, this is what happens to me with EasyGrow, the EasyGrow build, for example. The more you work, the more you stretch this thing out. And the more you stretch it out. And the more you stretch it out. And there's only so far you can push your body before this thing just fucking snaps. Like, you have to be able, like, the discipline is being undisciplined. That's the secret. It's being able to be in a, 3-month monk mode rut and to have the wisdom to discipline yourself to be undisciplined. That's the secret. It's the only way to sustain healthy, good, consistent behavior over time. The only way to achieve consistency is to consistently meet all of your needs. And wherever you can, you need to try and funnel them into that work thing, but some of them you can't funnel into the work thing. You just can't. Like, when I was building EasyGrow, I had like an extroverted part of me that was just dying,
Is there any position there that table gets too full? So this is a never-ending cycle, right? So if there is more people in the table, there is more mass.
Yeah. Well, some of them are bigger than others. So it's not like they all have the same level of prevalence in terms of psychological significance. So, for example, there might be a part of you that, I don't know, well, let's just take the introvert-extrovert. Let's say that there's a part of you that values orderliness, but only a small part of you. It's not that significant. Like, every now and then, you just have the random urge to clean your room at 5 in the morning. And it happens once every 6 months. It's getting what it needs. You don't need to worry about it. It's the big ones that are relevant to you'll know what they are, because they're all going to come up. There's going to be massive patterns that consistently repeat themselves. And those are the ones that you have. There's the big leverage points. For me, it was gaming. It was it was just doing stupid shit, like just lazing around, doing nothing, going up to the discipline and then down and up and down. Like, it's not healthy. Like this whole notion of monk mode and like lock in, it doesn't work. Because it suits one part of you, but then you've got like 5 other parts saying like, they're just biding their time. Like, oh, he'll break eventually, and when he does, we're going to have 4 months off and go to Marbella for 3 months. This happens to us all the fucking time. Like, we're all like, you go through this like rut and this lazy period, and then you have this massive surge of motivation. Like, all you're trying to do in physics and in maths, they call it frequency, right? So you know how we go up and we go down and we go up, and this is the average state of your existence here, of how anything really in your life is. But what you're trying to do is you can't break this up and down thing, but what you can do is reduce the frequency at which it happens. So you can start going like this, and then eventually you're still going to be going up and down, but this is balance. This is when you exist in your average state more often than not. And the only way that you achieve and reduce the frequency and the pain of going through this bloody thing is by having that release every now and then. And this, I only figured this out in the last year. I operated with that whole just have discipline thing, but you get the point.
I'd like to hear a double part from you and Bo on this last session. We haven't heard anything from Bo. Not that I'm trying to, what's the name, but I'd like to hear both of your inputs from it.
Okay. Like Charlie said, we are.
We're like
this,
one
we
person.
are literally completely in tune. There's nothing I can tell you that Charlie won't be able to tell you a lot better, because he's better with the words than I am. So.
There you go.
Yeah.
Louis?
Yeah,
that's brilliant. Let's be a politician, mate.
Yeah. Can this be applied in terms of the context of the journey where you're at in the business? We've spoke about this before. So the people that are watching your YouTube videos, that monk mode, kind of cutting all of that out, contextually makes sense because they need to get rid of a lot of bad habits and then reapply them.
Yep.
Whereas a lot of people in this room have surpassed that part of the journey, and now it's more about long-term growth and development, and applying this to the appeasement of everything. There's a different frame of thinking about long-term growth rather than just starting in the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Well, it's still the same thing. It's universal. It doesn't matter where you are. you've got to realize, man, like, it makes me laugh because, like, you start the journey with the monk mode thing.
Yeah.
But monk mode is really painful. It hurts more to do monk mode than it does to just do those shitty behaviors. So you could make the argument that monk mode is self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Because how do you define it? You define it on putting yourself through pain. Like, in order for a part of you to grow, another part of you must die. Anyway. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty good spot to start. I need to get better at this. Okay. Yeah, so I think that kind of explains the balance thing, really.
Yeah.
Anything taken to its extreme will become its opposite. Like, you're made of flesh and blood. Like, there's only so far you can push yourself before you blow up. And I've had it happen twice. Like, you can't out-discipline the body. It's just not possible. Like, why do we want to go to the fucking gym? Why does that happen? Like, when you think about it, it's like, why do we do things? It's unconscious. There's an unmet need or some trauma that's cropping up. Yeah, man?
It feels like it's our space's version of steroids type thing. It's like the equivalent in this kind of space. Like you said, everyone preaches this, so everyone thinks that's how it should be.
Yeah.
If you want to learn millions.
Well, look, the monk mode discipline thing, it works, but it doesn't work forever.
Yeah.
Like, your job as an entrepreneur is to figure out what you can sustain for like 60 years.
So related to this, how do you think about goals? Like, because obviously you can think about those things as milestones that you're hitting, or something that you become, or someone that you become.
Yep.
Like, is a goal for you, for example, is that like a thing that you attach to identity?
Yeah, so we don't achieve goals, we achieve characters or identities, really. And what you have to realize, I mean, no one really gets this, but when you set a goal, like, you need to reset your belief systems. Does that make sense? Because you're an aggregate of your beliefs, right? And so when you tell yourself you want something more than you have right now, like, your reality needs to change. And the way reality manifests to you is based on what you believe to be true about it. There's people in the world who think the earth is flat. And their actual reality is that the earth is flat. And that's how it's hard to imagine, but that's how they go through the world. Which is crazy to us because, well, I don't know, some of you might be a bit different to us, but that's fine. So when you like, you set the goal sets the conditions for who you need to become to achieve it, and then all you do is you try to achieve that person. So my 30 million a year goal, for example, like, I have to figure out how to become an influencer. I've got a lot of belief systems. I don't like thumbnails, or like, being famous is bad. All of these blockers that I have to get in and like reset. And in doing so, I have to shuffle those board members around to sort of appease them. Like, you got to do it. The goal sets the conditions for who you need to become. Yeah.
Any resource recommendations for someone that wants to do that?
Honestly, man, it's just think a lot. Work and then think about why you're doing it. I mean, anything by Carl Jung is going to be a good place to start, but his books are phenomenally hard to understand. I got one of these books called Psychology and Alchemy by Carl Jung, and it explains how, like, science was born out of this idea of alchemy, which is, like, obviously turning base metals to gold, and that's kind of what science is through the scientific method. And I read that. I didn't really understand the word of it, though. So,
you said in one of your YouTube videos, like, going back to entry-level university courses and textbooks.
Yeah, so like, if you want,
explain it in the board,
yeah, basic psychological knowledge you can just get from entry-level college textbooks. But the deep stuff only really comes from reflecting on your own bullshit for like 5 years. Because, like, I had that up and down pattern. It just would not go away. And it wasn't until I was like, like, this is what's going on. Like, there's parts of me that, there's a really good YouTube channel called The Diamond Net, which is the best shadow work channel I've ever found. She explains it, her name's Emerald. I've spoken to her, she explains the shadow really well. I bought a bunch of her stuff for the mindset module.
Diamond Net.
The Diamond Net.
It's kind of like a curveball.
Curveball. All right.
You said, you know where you needed to be, but it's like basically you passed certain spot or milestone, but you're not where you want it to be. So I want to, like, thinking of the mastermind that you gave last year, the mindset model. How do you feel that something changed? Because back then you told me like, oh, there's the shadow, there's this part of you like dragging you down, this part of you like pushing you for the thing. But now it's
So since
the
then,
balance thing.
I think that most people's lives can be boiled down to one word, but it's dependent on their existence. So you have a North Star, you have a Polaris star, right? And mine is growth. So I've come to accept the fact that it does not matter how far I go, I will never be content or happy, because that's the nature of growth. The second you're happy, or the second you are where you want to be, you stop growing. The only incentive for growth is unhappiness. So that might sound morbid, but I'm happy when I'm growing. So I get my happiness from the process, not the outcome.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the goal doesn't fucking matter, man. It's just giving yourself something to do that means something.
And from last year, do you feel like you've accomplished stuff you got anywhere near those? Or at that moment?
Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah. So, what else?
Do you have a routine to reflect? Because when you are in the work and you always are in a rush and doing things, sometimes you lose the routine of just thinking.
No. Like, it's not a priority. It's something that I do when I haven't got anything to do. My ex-girlfriend summarized me very well by saying, your problem, Charlie, is when you don't have a problem to solve, you create one. Which I thought was pretty fucking ironic, right? So if I've got the academy to build for 4 months, I'm not going to be reflecting on my shadow, but it's just when it's that period between having achieved a goal and setting a new one that I've got time to actually think and just think about it.
Do you give yourself a frame of what to think about?
No, just happens. All of the stuff I'm teaching you here today is just from my experience. I haven't planned it or written it out or thought it through. It's just what I know.
Do you feel like you're not doing enough?
Yes, every day.
You just get used to it? You just get used to it?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
What's enough? How do you define enough? Yeah.
Do you feel satisfied or?
No, I don't feel satisfied. I've never felt satisfied, ever. The second I have, and then it just leads to comfort, and then I'm unhappy. It's it's less painful for me to not be satisfied than it is satisfied. Because ask yourself, you've done what you want to do, now what?
Yeah.
You've become this conscientious being that is goal-striving and hard-working, and now you've done it. But now you've built this character to do what you've just done, and that character wants to keep doing what it's just done. So how on earth, there's only so many beaches you can go to, man, before you get depressed. It happens, man. I see it all the time. All these guys I want laptop lifestyle, and then they get it, and then they're like, Thailand's nice, and then they're just bored.
Dubai's nice.
Yeah, well, Dubai's different.
No, because I think I'm the same. We probably all are we want to grow, but then you get into the mode that you work, and you maybe not prioritize relationships and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the mediating thing with the.
Well, mate, I used to beat myself up for dating and stuff, because I would do it whilst I'm working, and I'm like, this is a distraction, and then I was like, oh no, there's just someone sat at the board.
Yeah.
That just wants to be loved.
Yeah.
You've got to fucking meet that thing, otherwise you're in. What? You know what I mean? Otherwise you're going to go on some sort of bender in Amsterdam. I haven't done that, by the way. I haven't. I've been to Amsterdam. I went with my sister, so it's a very different story.
What are your thoughts on thinking you can never be free?
Thinking you can never be free?
Yeah.
Well,
so in terms of you run businesses and you have this thing that with Genesis vehicles allows you to buy freedom of choice in a sense, but you're never truly free because you have to always kind of still be within that thing.
Yeah, you're never free because you chase freedom.
Well, freedom. Well, that's the thing. Freedom doesn't exist. Because the second you're free, you're going to want to not be free. Freedom is to me having the choice to be free, but choosing not to.
Doesn't it kind of come back to the goal? What do you want it to look like?
Well, what could be more freeing than having the freedom to pick anything you want to achieve in your life, picking exactly how you want to do it, and then going and doing it? What's more free than that? We're all free. We get to wake up when we want, we get to make our own decisions, we get to
Yeah,
work
but
on things that are meaningful.
Like you have a company that relies on you.
Yeah.
It not necessarily relies on you, but like you create this vision, vision,
Yep.
which everyone's pulling forward to. You're truly good.
But it's like I want to do it.
Yeah.
But like I want, it's like I.
So do you feel happy about it?
Yeah.
And do you have like sometimes like you have a moment back in your life where you feel like you were happier before, doing other things than working?
I think it's no, because who you are changes. So what makes you happy will change. So I can't compare my happiness to who I was 5 years ago, because it's like it would be like me comparing my happiness to your happiness. Totally different person, totally different identity, different paradigm, different belief system, different people. So I can't relate who I am now to who I was because they're two different people. If I hadn't changed, then I could look back and say, oh, that made me happier. But if I went back to what made me happy like 3 years ago, it wouldn't make me happy now because I have different needs and wants. Yeah, man.
But think about this a lot, because like there's times where like if I have to write copy to a deadline, like I fucking hate it. Whereas if I do it because I enjoy it, like I want to jump in or help Lee out, whatever, like like it's really fulfilling. Like, do you feel the same feeling where like when it got to the point where you didn't have to work anymore, making the choice to work, it was more fulfilling at that point than it was like when you had to? Or
well, it's the same thing, man. Like I'm no more or less happy than I was before because I'm a different person now. Like, I was happy before when I was in the early stages. It fucking sucked. Like, it was horrible, but at the time I was like, I know that I'm doing this for the right reasons. Like, what makes you happy is the end, not the means. So what about belief systems? What do you guys want to talk about with these things? Like how to change them?
I mean, first of all, like, how do you stop fooling yourself? Because you already believe something, right? You already brought it up. Like, you already believe, and your mind, even if you come across someone else's paradigm that makes sense to you, but you kind of just keep fooling yourself to like, maybe it doesn't work for me, or how do you look at it like?
Yeah, it's abstract, man. Well, look, the thing to know about beliefs is you don't have beliefs, beliefs have you. Okay? That's an important thing for everyone to know. You do not have belief systems, they have you. They're like these fucking pathogens. Okay? And the way you change them, I mean, look, if I'm here right now, and I'm here at 26, and I believe that sales sucks, right? The reason I believe that is because of one thing that happened one time before this age. And I've just compounded it by reimagining it and repeating it and seeking to confirm it. The dangerous thing about beliefs is you seek to confirm them. So every belief that you guys have, you have actively sought to reconfirm, no matter how wrong or inaccurate it may be. And that's why they're so hard to break, because you've spent your last however many years defending them and reinforcing them. And so the way that you try and change this is you become aware of it. So you can't change anything until you're aware of it at the beginning. And then you change it to, sales is amazing. And then the only real way I've found is just the affirmation and visualization thing. Yeah. So like, I used to think outreach sucked, and I just told myself like 10,000 times it didn't. And then like I'd get a booking and be like, I knew it. I knew it didn't suck. And then like you'd reimagine that feeling of getting a booking and, maybe it is amazing. What else have I had this with? Yeah?
In that example, what happens if you never booked an appointment and you never like reconfirm that?
Then you imagine you did. Because the brain can't tell the difference between what you've imagined and what is actually true. And if you don't believe me, just think of the last time you watched a horror movie or any movie. Like if a stimulus makes your unconscious conjure up an emotional reaction, then to your mind it's real. Okay? So if you can start to create imaginary circumstances that create emotional states in your mind that confirm that that thing was true, well then you're going to believe it's true. So really you delude yourself into success.
One of the things I'm doing active work with a mindset coach for about a year and a half.
They're the worst.
Amazing.
Honestly. Yeah, I mean, mindset coaches, it depends if you're trying to solve a problem though, man. Like, is it a mindset coach for a specific thing? Or like, are you trying to work on a trauma or something? Like,
no, it's like a business coach for making plans. And then,
oh, that's fine. Yeah, okay.
And then whenever we encounter a problem, then we go like into the
Good. And like a mindset coach that just talks about mindset is like, it should always be with a business goal in mind. Okay, cool. What's the question?
And then he has a very helpful system, which is like for changing beliefs, which is going into the like how do you define these? Like for me at least, because I'm super logical and sometimes rigid with the explanations of things, and I need to understand why. And then we go very deep into, so for example, like what is sales, kind of definition. And then when we manage to redefine what is sales, sometimes we have to go a little bit deeper about like revealing the kind of like the road network, where was it born, like for example the trauma. But then we can find the logic. There's always logic, for example, for negative associations. And then it comes down a lot to your definition of the thing. What are you doing when you're doing sales in this example? And then if you can redefine it for yourself, that's for me at least, that's like the first place of drawing a new road network into a different direction, but you still have to pave it by walking, so by repetition. But it becomes like
anything that's true is usually only true because you believe it to be true. In like, unless there's some natural force or like physics or something that says otherwise, like that's almost always how it works.
What do you think are the belief patterns at like 6, 7, 8 figures? Like, what do you see are
yeah, the biggest one is no one can do this better than me.
from 6 to 7?
Yeah, that's the big one. Is no one can do my job better than I can. It's that, like, you know, it's an unconscious thing. It's control, Charlie.
How do you count?
Just tell yourself that someone can do it better than you, 10,000 times. You know.
Joe Dispenza is a good resource for that. Joe Dispenza, do you know him? It's like he's not neuroscientist and he's explaining all the attraction law like with science. And it's really good.
Yeah, I've never looked into the science, but so what else do you want to talk about with mindset? Come on.
I'd be interested to understand how you go about doing the exercises that you and Bo do together, almost like a sounding board when someone's going a bit out of whack.
Yeah, because I've never done it before. Well, I can tell you with Bo and I, like we have this joke as partners that if our pain avoidance aligns, then we're in deep trouble. And that's almost true. Always like if we make a mistake in business or just do something stupid, it's usually because like we're both like not checking each other. But then again, man, like a lot of this progress that I've made is just from thinking, and there's no strategy behind it. It's just like I have a problem. Okay, reality is manifesting to me in a way that confirms that problem exists. What do I believe to be true about this thing? And is that objective or not? Answer is 99% of the time, no, it's not. And then you just invert it, and then you ask yourself, what would life be like if I believed the polar opposite to this thing? And then you work on reconfirming that belief. Like Bo and I believed for like a year that sales reps did not need to be managed. And we sought to confirm it. Every mistake we've ever made, like we believed as well that, I mean, there's a ton. All the mistakes we've made, like for example, I'm pulling for straws here. Well, the sales management one's an easy example. Like, what else? Well, it's like the easiest, most prevalent one in the room is the nurturing thing.
Yeah.
People need to be warmed up before they bite. It's not real.
It's not real.
Like it's like you all have this. Like I've been picking up on it from all of your questions and stuff. Like all of you are asking questions when you already think you know the answer. You're not seeking advice. You're seeking to be confirmed.
Yeah.
So like Charlie, should I do this or this? And I say that. Really? Like they like really? I thought that one would be better. It's like you're not asking me for advice. You just want me to confirm what you already put to believe to be true. We all do it. We're all guilty of it. But the more often you do it, the worse off you're going to be. It's like you guys. Like I can tell you're very reluctant to remove those products. No, you are. I get it.
But they
And that's
don't
because you believe it's better to have more. And someone tells you you're wrong and you're like, nah, couldn't possibly be the case.
What question should we have been asking?
How do I become the person that I need to become to achieve what I want to achieve? That's the only thing you fuck off. Well, that's really all you should be concerning yourself with. What's my goal? Who has achieved that goal? What do they look like? How do I mold myself into that? Change my belief systems. You are an amalgamation of belief systems. And those belief systems will come from those parts of you and stuff as well. Yeah?
I don't know if you were able to talk about this, but one thing for me is my whole career was in this space of identity change, and I was always trying to work to do that. But I made so many damn mistakes in business and took so long, so many wrong turns. You kind of like lose hope for a while and think like, why is it not happening? It seems like you've had such a fast trajectory. I know that's not the case, you've been doing it so long, but anything for those people who are still going through those times, like thankfully managing to be a bit out the other side now.
Yeah. So there's where the leverage is. So you have to look at meta beliefs. So, for example, it's your beliefs about how beliefs work. So your example there is like, oh, this isn't going to work. So you believe that changing your beliefs doesn't work. Does that make sense? Or at least you believe that changing your beliefs is going to take too long, or that you're going to quit. Does that make sense?
Well, that's definitely not me, but
No, but you might have done in the past. So the way you explained it to me was you said that it was taking too long and you were losing hope.
no, I'm not talking about belief change. Sorry, there, because that's been like my whole career. So I'm fully bought into that. I mean, in terms of you're trying to become this person, but you keep not making sales, and you keep that your business doesn't grow.
Mhm.
The trajectory that.
Yeah. We just have to believe, mate. You just have to believe that it's going to work. Which I know is like a cop-out answer. Like, just believe in yourself. But really, that is the answer. Do you know how, like, when I was doing the belief thing, like at the beginning, like, I would go to bed every night with like crippling doubt that it wasn't going to work. Like, I remember it, like, I mean, you probably have all had this at some point, like, staring up at the ceiling, this isn't going to work, fuck, I should just give up, you know? But you just... Yeah?
What was the longest time you and Bo went plateaued or down in the business?
A year?
Rana?
Yeah, COVID. Because we believed that gyms wouldn't transition to online. Yeah, probably like a year in COVID. We've never gone down. That's one thing we make sure never happens. I mean, we've gone like this, where we'll grow, plateau, grow, then maybe go down slightly where we were before, but we always pick it up. Like, we never let ourselves go below a certain point. Grow, plateau, up, down. Like, it kind of looks like that. But we've never like, each new sort of trough is always going to supersede the trough prior to it. But, you know, this thing during COVID was like a year before Imperium.
And when you're installing like new beliefs in terms of like, let's say, money you're making, or let's say the kind of business you have, do you put deadlines on yourself?
No.
Like, you should have compliant
Deadlines create disappointment, which makes you quit. Because if you don't meet it, now you feel like a failure. The only way to fail is to put a time frame on something. Because, like, if there's no time frame on it, how can you fail? Yeah, you only fail if you think, oh, I didn't do it by the time I wanted it to. The only way you can fail is quit. But the only reason you're going to quit is if you didn't do it before or on the moment you thought you were going to. Disappointment comes from
How do you
deadline.
set goals then? Because isn't there an important aspect of setting a goal in terms of time frame?
No. Just pick what you want and then go after it as hard as you can. Like, you don't set a goal, but you still work as if you don't set a deadline, but you always work today as if the deadline is tomorrow. Because you don't want to lose track of the time thing, because then you're just going to be lazy, like, oh, it's just going to happen, it's fine. But you don't put a time frame on it, but you work as if there is an immediate pressing urgency always constantly right now in the moment. Like, we're not smart enough to predict how long things are going to take. You're either going to overshoot it or undershoot it, and both are tragic.
Aside from business, aside from making money, what's one big question that you're still struggling to find the answer to?
What's one big question I still struggle to find the answer to? I don't really know. I stopped asking myself for, man, because I was like, I'm probably never going to figure it out. Like, there's only so much energy and time I have, and I'm struggling to figure out how to create a big personal brand at the moment, let alone the meaning of life. You know? So I don't really go there anymore.
So like fear of failure is basically like
Charlie. So let's say that when you were a kid, you were 4 years old and you got kicked off the football team and your dad would not let it go for 2 weeks. And he shamed you and punished you and you felt, that's trauma, okay? So what that means is part of you becomes traumatized and you fragment this thing and you push it away. And now this thing is like, you're always going to be afraid of failing, always, because part of you is, right? And what this means is you're never going to try to do things because it's less painful to stay where you are now than it is to relive the trauma that you went through, right? So what you need to figure out is where the hell did that come from, and then process it. And when you process trauma, it's like taking this little child that, you know, was in your brain and just saying, hey mate, you're good. You're not in the bath crying anymore. You know, you're friends with your dad now, like it's chill. And then once that little person realizes that it's good, then it stops trying to sabotage you. You know? But that's where the leverage is, man. Like, there's more, like Bo and I have made more progress in business by dealing with shit like this than any VSL. Because you can't create the VSL if you think it's going to fail. All you're trying to do is just clear out all this bullshit. It's like, you know, it's like you've got, well, it's just getting out your own way. Like, doing what you need to do is very easy, but it's really hard if all of these people are trying to stop you. So if you can figure out how to get them to stop you, then it's just, all you've got to do is just do the work. The reason everyone procrastinates and has doubts and fears and struggles is because parts of them are like, oh, if we do that, then I'm not going to have what I want, which is to cling on to this fear. Now, when I say what I want, it's either unmet needs or trauma. So if part of you isn't, I mean, part of you would probably not have this unmet need of failure, so it's probably a trauma one.
Charlie, how much do you think you can clear out that on your own versus you need to get a therapist?
You need a therapist, really. It doesn't have to be a therapist, it just needs to be someone that you really trust. So, you know, I've done it a few times with a lot of personal things. The obvious one is the bullying one that I'm comfortable talking about. And that was with a shadow work coach, but then also with my girlfriend at the time. Doing it on your own is impossible. All you need to do is like talk about it and acknowledge that it's there and then cry on someone you love for like 4 hours. That's it. But it's like there's so much resistance to doing that because it's so fucking painful. But honestly, it's like the most productive thing that you can do. Because we're all weird, right? We're all entrepreneurs. We're not normal. We're not like, we have strange psychological conditions that manifest in strange ways, which means that strange things have happened to us. So we have weird shit to deal with, all of us. I'm sure that all of you resonate with this message right now. Something, maybe not all of you, but maybe something bad happened to you and it has to find a way to manifest. The adult is developed to protect the child, not in a maternal or paternal sense, but you, as an adult, will do everything you can to pacify the person that you were when something bad happened to you. Whether it's drinking, or whether it's shouting at people, or whether it's being insular, or whether it's gaming, or whatever it is, there's usually one or two, maybe more big things that happen to you that you just don't want to look at. And they will you're like a puppet to this thing.
What are your thoughts on like using these negative things as like fuel? I think Mo said this, he studies champions and like people see the champions and the elites as like holes, whereas actually they're like typically broken, and there's something that fuels them, and that's why they're like weird in that context.
Yeah, trauma is fuel, man. Pain is petrol, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
because if you flesh all this out, you're like, oh, I'm happy, like, I'm content now.
Yeah, so that kind of doesn't happen because, okay, this is a question that I always get asked about this. It's like, if I'm motivated to, like, for example, the bullying thing, right? I was motivated to build a business so that I wouldn't have a boss so that no one could bully me, okay? And then the argument is kind of like, well, if this version of me, if I kill this off, and this is what's giving me most of my motivation, surely if I kill this off, then I'm in trouble. But this is the thing, is until you get rid of this, you don't truly know who you are because you're being run by a child, essentially. And what you can do when you get rid of this is your goals might change. What you want might change, but typically the rest of your identity has been so ingrained in your goal that you just clear this thing out and then everything ticks up. It's very rare that removing this will remove your motivation. If anything, you'll be way more motivated because now you can actually do what you want. Like I've done this with a few people privately, and I've never seen it strip their motivation away. Ever.
How do you look about recognizing the things that you want and the motivations behind them, and then kind of like analyzing them, what is destructive or what is useful to have as a motivation in order to avoid the things as goals that you want for the wrong reason.
What?
So like goals.
Sorry, I don't mean it in a rude way, but I'm just.
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying is this. So, okay, so how do you recognize those things and figure out if they're productive or not?
Yeah, because like I also hear from a lot of the questions around is that like there's goals that might be there for kinds of motivations that when that goal is achieved is not gonna like fulfill the real motivation behind it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
You have to tell me if this answers it or not, right? So I'm just redrawing this diagram. So, okay, every time you have some weird random emotion, it's telling you something inside of you is telling you that it wants something, okay? And that thing could be alcohol, or it could be a car, to use trite examples. It could be a girlfriend or something like that. But below the want is the need. So, for example, with alcohol, it could be the need to release control. With a girlfriend, it could be the need to feel love, okay? So you need to get to the baseline bottom of the needs, and whether you like it or not, you have to fulfill them. You don't have a choice to decide whether or not this is going to be good for you or not. You kind of haven't got much to do about it. Now, what you can do is the argument is then, well, if I need to feel like I'm out of control and the only way I can do that is through drinking, then I'm fucked because I'm an alcoholic. But no, you need to try and find something else that, like, okay, so this is that. So let's say that this person here is no control Charlie.
So I think that the question is more related to like defining your why or North Star kind of goal. Where is this going into it?
Let me explain this point and then we'll visit it, because it might contextualize it. And this is for everybody as well. So let's say that I've got no control Charlie. There are plenty of ways that no control Charlie can manifest his needs. One primary one could be alcohol. Okay? And maybe this is how it manifests a lot at the moment. So I feel the emotion of like I'm sad. I want alcohol to numb that sadness, but really what I need to numb that sadness is a feeling like I'm just releasing control and I'm not trying to keep it all together. Alcohol is going to be the thing that I go to most of the time because it's how I've conditioned myself. But another way that you could try and overcome this need could be like skydiving. Now, I'm not going to give too many examples because I'm on the spot here, but there's dozens of ways that you can achieve the same need to satisfy the want, to gratify the emotion, other than something destructive like alcohol. It doesn't have to be something destructive. It could be skydiving. I mean, it could be some freaky shit. I don't know. That's how it works, though. It has to go somewhere. So you don't have a choice. Like, you are at the mercy of this thing. You just need to orchestrate, as the chairman of the board, where this thing gets what it needs from. So, anyway, your question.
So about like defining your why, defining the North Star, like finding a good reasoning behind it, so that you're actually chasing something that will be conducive to building something instead of chasing something that, when you achieve those things, it's not really fulfilling the needed.
Yeah, I know. So this is like the vision thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like, well, first of all, you can only really come up with a vision when you've got rid of all the trauma.
Right.
It's very hard to think in a 50-year time horizon when there's a 11-year-old boy inside of your mind trying to like stop you from working. Like, it just won't work. So you need to do the whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs thing, clear out your psychology as much as you can, and then you just think for 6 months. That's how I did it. There wasn't any strategy behind coming up with the 50-year vision. It was just, I've got nothing to do, so I'm going to think of what I should do, and I'm going to make it as big and as meaningful as humanly possible. And then I was like, what are 2 things that I love, with the exception of like my family and stuff? I like entrepreneurs, and I love education. That's where my passion lies. So I was like, what if I can just educate every entrepreneur? Oh, and then you feel it. You're like, fuck, that feels amazing. So you find the group of people that you love the most, and you find the thing you love the most, and you try and Venn diagram them together. That's how you come up with a big vision. And then you just make it as big as you can. Every entrepreneur who wants to succeed does. Imagine a world where that actually happens.
Yeah, the vehicle kind of becomes flexible, right? So like that super easy.
Yeah. And this has always existed. Like, I've always had a seat at the board of Visionary Charlie. Like, it's always been in there, which is why the goal just consistently gets further ahead. But I've never cleared all this shit out enough and had enough time to think about it to actually, you know, process it. And now that I've got the vision, Visionary Charlie, he's signed off. I paid his dividends. It's one less thing to have to think about. Now that's difficult to achieve with these fragments because obviously the vision is just this concrete final thing.
Charlie, on that, I really liked the modern hierarchy, you call it, but like you said, the tick off. Do you think is the thing just race as fast as you can to the next level and like do the stupid shit? Not do it, but like you have to be there. You can't just jump over it.
Well, it's kind of like that diagram I drew at the very beginning. Like, here I am now, and here's my goal, and between these 2 points is this big, crazy, windy path, and maybe I'm like here. I can only just about see how to get here. I'm not going to concern myself with how to manage an office of 20,000 people, because I don't know. Like, it's one little step at a time, driving a car at night. If I try and look down the road to some pedestrian when there's a hedgehog in front of me, let's say 10 hedgehogs, then I'm probably going to run over 10 hedgehogs.
So is it that the case, run towards freedom if freedom is the motivator, but as soon as you get there, realize that's not the thing? And
Yeah, like you have to sort of like, it's kind of, you have to kind of like look around the corner and open the door, because I used to think it was status, you know, and like I used to think it was having a mansion. So like you peek around the corner, you step in, you're like, nah, not really that bothered by that. And then there's like another corner and another corner. And then you look at something, you're like, God damn, it's like finding a wife. I'd imagine, I'd hope.
Charlie, sorry, this is a big one for us. When did you decide to come back to the UK? I mean, because we struggle a lot deciding on where to live. It's one of the big decisions that we have to make. And I mean, we wonder why you decided to come back here.
Well, first of all, it's home, which is helpful, but it's the vision map. Like, it's either going to be London, New York, or LA. Like, where's the talent?
All right, but why not LA or New York?
Never been. So, like, if you want talent, like the ants go where the sugar lies, right? So you need to be in a hot spot for the talent you want. It's like why Elon Musk lives in, like, where does he live? It's like in...
They live in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. So, like...
No, some moments go to the...
Yeah, well, look, he's starting a software company, so where are all the software engineers?
In LA, baby. Sam moved to New York because that's where the best consultants were. We moved to LA because that's where the best engineers are.
So for you, it's really important to have your team, your people, in the same place.
It's becoming more and more important this week, right? It's fine at this level, but I want to do 30 mil a year. I need like a team of like 30 people. I also want to see Nora's suit.
Why not Chelsea? Why not keep it remote? It'll still be in London, but
Name me one brilliant company that's ever done it remote. Name another. It's like, well, we could try, but I just feel like it's kind of time. I feel like a company is not really serious until you have an office. That's a belief system. I might be wrong. That could be completely
You're
wrong
good
with
at
it.
building a remote team. You've
Huh?
never built an in-house team. You've never built an in-house team. Everything's been remote, and that's what you guys are good at.
Well, I'm basing this off the fact that Jim launched, Consultant.com, and all the big info businesses that I'm trying to emulate, they all had office space. So I'm just looking at the evidence, like Cole Gordon, office. Sam Evans, office in New York. Or Mosey, office. So it's like, just look at the clues.
Private Ventures office as well. They actually don't hire remote workers.
Or Publishing.com, office. Like, you just look at you just try and copy what works, man. You know?
Fair enough, fair play.
I can give a real-time example. Like, it's really the culture side
Talk
of
up a
things.
little bit, man.
So, like, we did a sales team meeting last Saturday in person for the first time, and I'd say we, as sales reps, got more out of that in one day than we did in 2 months of Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
It doesn't help this manager sat next to him, but
No, but like we spoke about it the other day, and it's just like even just the dinners. that
Nothing
we've had,
beats in person,
It's
yeah.
just the culture, the
Yeah.
relationships. You buy more into the vision. You know, it becomes more tangible, and
Conviction.
you know, like I'm sure this. I hope you're okay with me saying this. Like Charlie's not going to get to $30 million a year without people who also want to get him to $30 million a year.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So it's just like cultural buy-in from everyone else, and that's made that every time we've met up, that's made the biggest impact for us as a team, even on an individual level, regarding to the future growth of the company.
people need to feel like they're part of something, man.
Because it gets pretty lonely just sitting on
Yeah,
taking
no,
sales
that's-
calls.
No, I need to expand that the month that we made Drunk IDK, all our sales team were living together.